My girlfriend insisted I meet her parents over dinner. She trashed me in Italian all night, thinking I wouldn't understand. He's too stupid to even know, she laughed. After dinner, I thanked her parents in fluent Italian, then exposed every lie she'd told them. All right, Reddit. My girlfriend trashed me to her parents, thinking I couldn't understand. But I shocked her after dinner, exposing her lies in perfect Italian. She refused to leave my apartment, then escalated to theft and stalking with her friends. So I took my revenge. Here's what went down. My girlfriend Isabella, 25 female, had been bugging me, 27 male, for months about meeting her parents. Not just asking, demanding, like it was some kind of divine right she was entitled to. Every conversation somehow turned into, "When are you meeting my family, Marco?" "Yeah, my name's Marco. Dad's American. Mom was from Bologna." More on that later. Isabella wasn't the type to ask nicely for anything. She was one of those girls who thought batting her eyelashes meant she deserved whatever she wanted. Designer bags, expensive dinners, weekend trips to Napa, all on my dime, obviously, because her job at some bullshit wellness startup barely covered her car payment. The red flags were there from day one, but I ignored them like an idiot. Like when she'd accidentally forget her wallet every single time we went out, or how she'd pout and give me the silent treatment if I suggested splitting a check. "Real men take care of their women," she'd say with this manipulative little smile. But the biggest red flag? She never asked about my family. In 3 years of dating, she knew my dad was American and my mom had died when I was 17. But that's where her curiosity ended. She was too busy talking about herself to give a shit about my background. The manipulation ramped up when she realized direct pressure wasn't working. She started mentioning other couples where the guy had already met the parents. "Jessica's boyfriend proposed after meeting her family," she'd hint. "They said meeting the parents showed he was committed." Here's what I didn't know. I wasn't walking into a nice family dinner. I was walking into a roast, and I was the main course. But Isabella didn't know something either. My mom wasn't just from Italy. She was born in Bologna, raised speaking Italian before English, and taught me the language from day one. After she died when I was 17, speaking Italian felt like reopening a wound, so I just stopped, packed it away. My last name's O'Brien. I look like I stepped out of a country club catalog, and in 3 years of dating, Isabella never once asked about my mom's background. That little detail was about to become very important. The dinner was set for Saturday night at her parents' place in some gated community where the HOA probably has rules about what color your garbage cans can be. I threw on a decent shirt, grabbed flowers for her mom, and picked up Isabella. She was nervous, which was weird, because Isabella's usually about as humble as a Kardashian. But that night she kept checking herself in the mirror and asking if I looked presentable enough. "They're going to love you," she kept saying. "Just be yourself, but maybe tone it down a little." Tone what down? I'm an architect, not a freaking circus performer. The car ride over should have been my warning. Isabella kept coaching me on what to talk about, what not to mention, how to act. "Don't bring up work too much," she said. "They think people who brag about their jobs are insecure. And don't mention your hobbies. They'll think you're immature. So basically, don't talk about anything that makes me who I am." Got it. "What should I talk about then?" I asked. "Just let them lead the conversation. Answer their questions. Be charming." We pull up to this McMansion that screams, "We refinanced twice to afford this." Mr. Rossi answers the door, firm handshake, looking me up and down like he's calculating my net worth. Mrs. Rossi's behind him with this plastic smile that could cut glass. "You must be Marco," she says in English, but I catch her shooting Isabella this look that says, "Really? This is what you brought home?" The house was exactly what I expected. Oversized furniture, too many decorative pillows, and family photos everywhere showing Isabella at various stages of being spoiled rotten. Trophy case in the living room filled with participation awards from her childhood dance classes. We sat down in their formal dining room with the good china and cloth napkins. Everything's perfectly staged like they're expecting a magazine photographer to show up. And that's when the show started. Isabella immediately switches to rapid-fire Italian with her parents. Turns to me with this fake-ass smile and goes, "We're just catching up. We'll switch back to English in a few minutes, I promise." Those few minutes turned into 2 hours. 2 hours of me sitting there like a houseplant while the woman I thought I loved spent the evening destroying my reputation in a language she thought was her secret weapon. I smiled. I nodded. I passed the bread. And I understood every single word. You know that feeling when you're watching someone dig their own grave and they keep asking for a bigger shovel? That was my life for 2 hours straight. It started with my career. Isabella tells her parents, "È bravo ma non ha vera ambizione." Si accontenta di essere un nobody in una piccola ditta. Sono io quella con la determinazione e la visione. Praticamente lo mantengo io perché il suo stipendio è, beh, patetico. He's fine, but he has no real ambition. He's content being a nobody at some small firm. I'm the one with drive and vision. I basically support us financially because his salary is, well, pathetic. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. I make $160,000 a year as a senior associate at one of the city's top architectural firms. Isabella makes maybe $45,000 selling overpriced supplements to suburban soccer moms. I've paid for every vacation, every fancy dinner, every designer purse she's ever owned, including the $12,000 trip to Greece last year, where she complained the entire time that our suite wasn't big enough. Her mom leaned in with this conspiratorial whisper. But then why are you still with him? Isabella shrugged with theatrical resignation. He's convenient. He pays for everything, doesn't ask questions, and isn't smart enough to cause problems. Like having a well-trained dog. Then she moved on to my personality. È noioso, she says with this dramatic sigh. He's boring. No culture, no sophistication. He won't even try to learn Italian despite dating me for 3 years. It's like dating a golden retriever. Sweet, but not much going on upstairs. I literally have Dante's Inferno sitting on my nightstand in Italian. I've been reading Italian literature since high school. But hey, why would she know that? She'd never shown interest in anything about me that didn't involve her directly. Her father chimed in with his own observations. He seems like the type who only watches sports and drinks. These Americans are all the same. Isabella nodded enthusiastically. Exactly! He's so predictable. Every weekend is the same thing. Football, drinks, and video games. Like a teenager who never grew up. This was rich coming from someone whose idea of culture was reality TV, and whose hobbies included shopping and complaining about everything. But the real kicker came when her mom asked about marriage. And marriage? Has he ever made his intentions clear? Oh, I'm ready to get married tomorrow. But he's terrified of commitment. I've been dropping hints for months and he just ignores them. I think he's keeping his options open, if you know what I mean. Fear. At that exact moment, I had an $8,000 custom engagement ring sitting in my bedroom safe. I'd been planning to propose on a surprise trip to Tuscany I'd already booked for her birthday. First-class tickets, 5-star hotel in Florence, the whole romantic movie bullshit. Sitting there listening to her call me a commitment phobe while I'm literally planning to propose in her ancestral homeland? That's some next-level cosmic freaking irony. The conversation kept spiraling. They dissected everything. My family, my future, my worth as a human being. All while I'm sitting there playing the role of the dumb American boyfriend who's too stupid to know he's being roasted alive. Mrs. Rossi got particularly vicious when the topic turned to my background. He doesn't even know where his family comes from. These Americans have no roots, no history. How can you build a future with someone who doesn't know who he is? Isabella nodded along like the dutiful daughter. Exactly, Mom. He's so empty. He has no depth, no passion for anything. It's like living with a mannequin. The worst part wasn't what she was saying. It was the casual cruelty of it. She'd look at me with these loving expressions while telling her parents I was basically a charity case she was considering dumping. I kept thinking about my mom during this whole shit show. How she taught me that Italian wasn't just a language. It was our connection to family, to history, to who we were. She'd read me bedtime stories in Italian, taught me to cook her nonna's recipes, made sure I understood where I came from. And here was Isabella, using that same language like a knife, turning something sacred into a weapon. But I held it together. I'm not the type to flip tables and storm out. I was raised better than that. I just sat there, cataloging every lie, every insult, every betrayal, waiting for the perfect moment to detonate this whole thing. That moment came during dessert. Her dad looks at me like I'm a particularly disappointing house pet and asks Isabella, Sei sicura di questo? Sembra semplice. Are you sure about this one? He seems simple. Isabella laughs and reaches over to pat my hand condescendingly. She looks me right in the eyes, like we're sharing some intimate moment, and says to her parents in Italian, Don't worry. He's too stupid to understand what we're saying. Look at him just sitting there with that blank smile. Like a trained seal. That was it. Game over. Every ounce of grief, rage, and betrayal crystallized into this cold, surgical clarity. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was going to wait for exactly the right moment, and then I was going to nuke her entire world. The perfect moment came as we were getting ready to leave. Her dad, probably feeling guilty about spending 2 hours talking shit about me to my face, pats my shoulder and speaks in slow, careful English like he's addressing a kindergartner. It was very nice meeting you, Marco. That's when I smiled, looked him straight in the eye, and let my mom's language flow out like silk. Il piacere è stato tutto mio, signor Rossi, I said in perfect, unaccented Italian. The pleasure was all mine, Mr. Rossi. You know that moment in action movies when the bomb timer hits 0 and everything goes silent right before the explosion? That's exactly what happened. Mrs. Rossi's wineglass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Mr. Rossi's jaw dropped so fast I thought he might dislocate something. And Isabella? Isabella went white as a ghost, then green around the edges. She looked like she was about to puke, faint, or spontaneously combust. Maybe all three at once. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I kept that polite smile and turned to her parents, still speaking fluent Italian. Prima di andarcene, vorrei chiarire alcuni piccoli malintesi della conversazione di stasera. Before we leave, I'd like to clear up a few small misunderstandings from this evening's conversation. The silence in that dining room was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in the next zip code. Isabella was frozen like a deer in headlights, probably running through every horrible thing she'd said and realizing I'd understood all of it. It was beautiful. What happened next was like watching a masterclass in surgical precision. I kept my voice calm and pleasant, like I was discussing the weather, while I systematically destroyed every lie Isabella had built her little performance on. First, the money situation. Isabella mentioned some concerns about my financial stability. I want to put your minds at ease about any confusion. I pulled out my phone and showed them the confirmation for the Tuscany trip. First-class tickets, suite at the Four Seasons in Florence, reservations at Michelin-starred restaurants. This is the surprise I was planning for her birthday. She mentioned supporting us financially? Simple misunderstanding, I'm sure. Isabella's face was getting whiter by the second. A single tear started rolling down her cheek, cutting a clean track through her foundation. She still couldn't move, couldn't speak, just sat there watching her world implode in real time. Next, the culture issue. She also mentioned my supposed lack of interest in Italian culture. This one particularly hurt. My mother, Francesca, was from Bologna. She raised me speaking her language. It was the language of my childhood, my heart. After she passed, it became too painful to speak. I kept it private because it was sacred to me. Mrs. Rossi's hand went to her chest, her expression completely changing from disgust to horror. Mr. Rossi stared at his daughter with this look of profound disappointment, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. And finally, the killing blow. I looked directly at Isabella, and my voice went ice cold. You told your parents I was afraid of commitment, that I was stringing you along. You said this knowing I've spent the last 2 months working with a jeweler to design your engagement ring, knowing I was planning to propose to you in the hills of Tuscany next month. I let that hang in the air, watching it sink in. But I see now that a man cannot propose to a woman who thinks he's a stupid, worthless burden. A man cannot build a future with a woman who uses his dead mother's language as a tool to mock him. I stood up from the table, turned to her parents one last time. Grazie per tutto. Avete una casa bellissima. Thank you for everything. You have a beautiful home. Then I walked out, got in my car, and drove away, leaving Isabella sitting in the wreckage of the life she'd just torched with her own mouth. The car ride home was dead silent. Isabella finally came out and got in, but she was in complete shock. When we got to our apartment, the dam broke. She exploded, accused me of setting her up, of deceiving her, of planning some elaborate trap. You knew the whole time, she screamed. You sat there and let me talk. You tricked me. No, Isabella, I said, keeping my voice level. I didn't do anything. I just existed. You hung yourself with your own words. The only thing I did was understand them. She started pacing around the living room like a caged animal, alternating between rage and panic. This is insane. You deliberately hid this from me. I didn't hide anything. You never asked. In 3 years, you never once asked about my mother's background, where she was from, what languages I spoke. You were too busy talking about yourself to care about my family. That hit home. She stopped pacing and stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. But you never what? Never volunteered information you never showed interest in hearing? Then came the waterworks. The begging. The classic, I didn't mean it, I was just nervous. Bullshit. There's no coming back from this, I told her. You didn't just lie. You humiliated me using my mother's memory as entertainment. That's unforgivable. I walked into the bedroom and started packing her shit. This is my apartment, my lease. I want you out by tomorrow. That's when she showed her true colors. The crying stopped immediately, replaced by this cold fury. You can't just kick me out. I have rights. I live here too. No, I said calmly. You sleep here sometimes. There's a difference. She stared at me like she couldn't believe this was happening, like she thought she could cry her way out of it or threaten me into submission. But she'd crossed a line there was no coming back from. And that's when Isabella's real nightmare began. The next morning, Isabella refused to pack. Just sat on the couch in her pajamas, like she was staging some kind of occupation. "I'm not leaving," she announced. "This is my home too. You can't make me." That's when I called my childhood friend Jesse. We've known each other since we were 12, and he's got this gift for cutting through bullshit with surgical precision. "Need backup," I told him. "And maybe a place to crash for a few days while I deal with this." "Say less, I'll pack a bag." This sounds like entertainment. Jesse showed up an hour later with a duffel bag, 2 Starbucks cups, and this shit-eating grin. Took one look at Isabella camped out on my couch and said, "Oh, this is gonna be fun. So you're the girl who thinks Marco's too stupid to understand basic Italian? Bold strategy. How's that working out for you?" Isabella's eyes narrowed when she saw his bag. "What the hell is he doing here?" "He's staying here," I said calmly. "It's my apartment." "You can't just move someone in to intimidate me." Jesse laughed. "Intimidate you? Princess, I'm 5'8" and work in IT. If you feel intimidated by my presence, that says more about your guilty conscience than my intimidation factor." That's when Isabella tried her first power play. "Fine, I'll leave, but I want the engagement ring." I blinked at her. "What engagement ring?" "The one you bought me. You said you bought me a ring." "I said I bought a ring. Past tense. For a proposal that's never happening. That ring is going back to the jeweler." Jesse nearly choked on his coffee. "Holy shit, Princess. You actually think you're entitled to jewelry from the guy you just spent 2 hours roasting? That's some next-level delusion right there." Isabella's face went red. "I deserve compensation for 3 years of my life." "Compensation?" I laughed. "For what? The free vacations? The designer bags? The rent-free living? You want compensation for being financially supported while you played house?" Jesse was taking notes on his phone at this point. "This is gold. Please continue making demands you have no legal right to. I'm documenting everything." That's when she declared war. Instead of leaving, she dug in harder. "You know what? Fine, I'm not going anywhere. If you want me gone, you'll have to drag me out." Jesse looked at me with this deadpan expression. "Did she just refuse to leave your apartment while demanding compensation?" I believe she did. Fascinating. What followed was a week of psychological warfare. Isabella didn't just refuse to leave. She actively tried to make our lives miserable. She'd blast music at 3 a.m., leave dirty dishes everywhere, invite her toxic friends over without warning. The first night, she cranked some trashy pop playlist at maximum volume while Jesse and I were trying to sleep. When I knocked on the bedroom door to ask her to turn it down, she screamed through the door, "This is my home too! I can play music whenever I want!" Jesse was a saint through all of it. When Isabella would start one of her screaming fits, he'd just put in earbuds and ignore her. When she'd leave passive-aggressive notes around the apartment, he'd write responses. Her note: "Some people need to learn respect and basic human decency." Jesse's response: "Some people need to learn that Italian isn't a secret code and that actions have consequences. Also, you're out of toilet paper." The passive-aggressive warfare escalated daily. Isabella would use all the hot water before I needed to shower. Jesse responded by waking up at 5 a.m. to shower first, then loudly making coffee while she was trying to sleep in. She'd eat my food and claim she forgot it wasn't hers. Jesse started labeling everything in the fridge with detailed ownership notices. Marco's lunch. Do not eat unless you want to pay for takeout replacement. The labeling became an art form. Jesse would write things like, "Isabella's yogurt." "Oh wait, Isabella doesn't buy groceries. This is Marco's yogurt. Hands off, klepto." Or my personal favorite, "This sandwich belongs to the guy who pays rent here." But Jesse's real genius was in how he handled her manipulation attempts. Every time she'd try to guilt trip me or play the victim, he'd provide running commentary like a nature documentary narrator. And here we see the entitled princess in her natural habitat. He'd say in a David Attenborough voice, while Isabella was mid-tantrum, "Notice how she fluffs her feathers and squawks loudly when denied access to resources she believes she owns by divine right." Isabella would turn red every time he did this. "Stop talking about me like I'm not here," she'd shriek. Jesse would respond without missing a beat. The common Princess Sapien becomes increasingly agitated when her behavior patterns are observed and documented. Fascinating. The real entertainment came when Isabella's friends started showing up for moral support. Brittany and Chloe, both cut from the same entitled princess cloth, would camp out in my living room like they were staging an intervention. Day 3 brought the full cavalry. I came home from work to find all three of them arranged on my couch like they were holding court. They'd apparently been there for hours, eating my food and plotting their next move. You can't just kick Isabella out, Brittany announced. She has nowhere to go. Jesse, who was making himself a sandwich in the kitchen, called over. She has parents. She has friends. She has options. What she doesn't have is the legal right to squat in someone else's apartment. This is emotional abuse, Chloe shrieked. No, Jesse said calmly. Emotional abuse is what Isabella did at that dinner. This is just consequences. But I understand the confusion. Chloe stood up dramatically, pointing an accusatory finger at me. You're destroying her life over a stupid misunderstanding. Jesse looked up from his sandwich. A misunderstanding? She called him a trained seal, in Italian, while laughing. For 2 hours. Isabella started ramping up the harassment. She'd accidentally walk in on me showering. She'd move my stuff around and then claim she didn't know where it went. She'd order food to the apartment and stick me with the bill. The food delivery scam was her most pathetic move. She'd order $40 worth of Thai food, then disappear when it arrived, leaving me to deal with the confused delivery guy. Jesse started intercepting the delivery drivers. If Isabella ordered it, she can pay for it herself. If she's not here with cash, take it back. He had her number from day one. Every time she'd try some bullshit, he'd call it out with surgical precision. Oh, look, he'd say when she'd start fake crying. The waterworks are back. It's like clockwork. Every time someone calls her out on her behavior, here come the tears. By day 5, Isabella was getting desperate. She couldn't handle Jesse's constant dry commentary on her behavior. Every manipulation tactic she tried was immediately exposed and mocked. Why do you hate me so much? She asked Jesse during one particularly pathetic breakdown. I never did anything to you. Oh, I don't hate you, Isabella. I just have zero tolerance for bullshit, and you're basically a walking bullshit factory. It's nothing personal. You know what your problem is? Jesse told her during one of her meltdowns. You're used to people who enable your bullshit. Marco was too nice to call you out. Your parents spoiled you rotten, and your friends are just as delusional as you are. But I don't give a shit about your feelings, so I'm just going to keep pointing out reality. That's when Isabella made her biggest mistake. On day 7, while Jesse and I were at work, she packed up her shit and left. But she didn't just take her stuff, she took mine too. I came home from work to find half my shit missing. Isabella had cleaned me out like a freaking burglar. My iPad, my expensive headphones, 2 of my watches, some designer clothes, and, this one really pissed me off, my mom's jewelry box that she'd somehow found in my closet. Jesse took one look at the empty spaces and whistled. Damn, girl went full klepto on you. I was documenting everything for the police report when Isabella's text came through. I took what I deserved. Consider it compensation for 3 years of emotional labor. Jesse read it over my shoulder. Emotional labor? Is that what we're calling being a crazy girlfriend now? Apparently stealing constitutes payment for imaginary services. Should we tell her that's not how employment law works? Or should we let her explain that theory to the police? But the theft was just the beginning. Isabella and her toxic brigade were just getting started. The harassment campaign that followed was relentless. They'd show up at my gym, my coffee shop, my office building, not just asking for stuff back, actively trying to humiliate me in public. The gym incident was particularly embarrassing. I was mid-workout when all 3 of them showed up, marching through the weight section like they owned the place. Other gym members started staring as Isabella began her performance. There he is! The guy who kicked me out with nowhere to go. Brittany cornered me outside my office building during lunch. You need to drop this whole victim act, she said loud enough for people to hear. Isabella only took what was rightfully hers. Rightfully hers? I laughed. My dead mother's jewelry was rightfully hers? That stumped her for about 2 seconds before Chloe jumped in. You manipulated her for years. You owe her. Jesse, who'd come to meet me for lunch, walked up just in time to hear this. Oh good, the flying monkeys are back. Ladies, quick question. In what universe does emotional disappointment justify theft? I'm genuinely curious about the theory here. Shut up, Brittany snapped. This has nothing to do with you. Actually, it has everything to do with me. I'm the witness who watched Isabella refuse to leave Marco's apartment for a week while demanding compensation for imaginary services. I'm also the guy who's been documenting all your harassment attempts. Smile for the camera, by the way. Jesse held up his phone, which had been recording. Both girls went pale. You can't record us without permission? Chloe stammered. Actually, I can. Thanks for the evidence. But they weren't done. Next came the social media blitz. But this time it was coordinated. All 3 of them started posting about my abuse, my manipulation, my theft of Isabella's belongings. The problem was, they were all telling slightly different versions of the story. Isabella claimed I'd stolen money from her. Brittany said I'd destroyed her property. Chloe insisted I'd cheated on her with multiple women. The stalking got more aggressive. They'd sit in Brittany's car outside my building, following me to work, to the store, to the gym. One morning, I found them camping in the parking garage at 6 a.m., waiting for me to leave for work. "This is insane," Jesse said, peering through the blinds at them. "They're literally stalking you now." That's when Isabella crossed the final line. She started showing up at my office building, not just calling, but actually coming inside and demanding to see me. Building security had to escort her out 3 times. The security footage from the office building was pure gold. Isabella screaming at the front desk, demanding they call me down, threatening to expose me to my coworkers. The security guard, this massive dude named Marcus, finally had to physically escort her out while she shrieked about her rights. The final straw came when she somehow got into my apartment building, probably tailgated behind another resident, and left a bag of my stuff outside my door. Except half of it wasn't even mine. It was random junk mixed with a few of my actual belongings, like she was playing some twisted game. The note attached said, "I'm being generous. The rest stays with me until you pay me what you owe me." Jessie picked up the bag and examined the contents. "She gave you back a single sock, your high school yearbook, and... Is this a stapler? Whose stapler is this?" "I have no idea. This girl's lost her damn mind." "Wait," Jessie said, digging deeper into the bag. "There's more. A broken phone charger that doesn't fit any phone made in the last 5 years, a keychain from some tourist trap, and... Dude, is this a pregnancy test?" "What the hell?" I looked at the test. It was unused, still in the package. Why would she put that in there? She's trying to mess with your head. That night, Jessie sat me down with a drink and laid it out straight. "Dude, you need to stop being nice about this and go legal." And I did. Monday morning, I called my lawyer, David, and laid out everything. The theft, the harassment, the stalking, the threats. I had screenshots of every text, photos of them following me, security footage from my office building. David listened to the whole story and just whistled. "Marco, this isn't just a bad breakup anymore. This is a criminal matter. We're talking about a restraining order, theft charges, harassment charges. How much was the stuff she took worth? I documented everything. The watches alone were worth $3,000. My mom's jewelry was irreplaceable but insured for $5,000. Total damages were around $12,000. File everything," I told him. "Restraining order, theft charges, civil suit. I'm done being reasonable." David grinned. "Now you're talking. Let's bury her in paperwork." Getting the restraining order was easier than I expected. The judge looked at the evidence, photos of them following me, texts threatening to destroy my reputation, security footage of Isabella trying to force her way into my office, and granted it immediately. "Mr. O'Brien," the judge said, "this behavior is completely unacceptable. Ms. Rossi and her associates are to have no contact with you whatsoever. Any violation will result in immediate arrest." The look on Isabella's face when she was served with the restraining order was priceless. According to the process server, she broke down crying and claimed she was the real victim here. But I wasn't done. While the criminal charges were being processed, I did some digging into Isabella's employment situation. Turns out her wellness startup had a pretty strict social media policy and code of conduct. I spent an evening putting together a comprehensive package. Screenshots of her harassment posts, documentation of her stalking behavior, photos of her and her friends confronting me at public places. All of it showed a clear pattern of unprofessional, harassing behavior. Then I created an anonymous email account and sent it all to her company's HR department with a simple message. You may want to be aware of how one of your employees is representing your company in public. The consequences came fast and hard. Fast. And Isabella's company fired her within 48 hours of receiving that email. Turns out they'd been getting complaints from clients who'd seen her social media meltdowns and connected her to the company. The harassment evidence was just the final straw. Jessie got the update from Brittany's boyfriend, who was apparently getting tired of the drama. Isabella got canned from her job. She's claiming it's wrongful termination, but they documented everything. Social media conduct violations, harassment, bringing negative attention to the company. She's toast. The theft charges stuck too. My mom's jewelry box was found in Isabella's new apartment during the search warrant execution. She tried to claim I'd given it to her as a gift, but there were photos of it in my apartment from months before we'd even started fighting. The civil suit was where things got really interesting. Isabella tried to countersue for emotional distress, but her case was laughable. That's when David dropped the bombshell on me. Marco, I got a call yesterday from someone unexpected. Mr. Rossi reached out privately. I thought I'd misheard him. Isabella's father? The very same. Apparently, he's been doing some soul searching since that dinner. He wants to help settle this quietly and get your property back. Says he's concerned about preserving the family's reputation. I couldn't believe it. Isabella's own father was switching sides. David laid out the meeting. Mr. Rossi had seen the evidence package, the theft documentation, the harassment screenshots, the stalking photos. He was horrified by what his daughter had become and wanted to make it right before it became a public spectacle. He's offering to pay the full settlement amount plus your legal fees, David explained, in exchange for keeping this out of the media and avoiding a jury trial. He also wants to personally return your mother's jewelry box. The meeting was set for the following day. Mr. Rossi showed up looking like he'd aged 10 years since that dinner. He was quiet, respectful, and deeply embarrassed. Marco, he said, placing my mom's jewelry box carefully on David's desk, I owe you an apology. What happened at our dinner, what Isabella did afterward, this is not how we raised her. He handed David a cashier's check for the full amount. I hope this covers the damages and your legal expenses. I also hope you can forgive a foolish old man who didn't see his daughter clearly until it was too late. The real shock came during the actual court hearing. Isabella had no idea her father had contacted us. She walked into that courtroom expecting his support, probably thinking Daddy would bail her out like he always had. Instead, she found her own father sitting in the gallery, on my side of the courtroom. The look on her face when she saw him was pure devastation. Her mouth fell open, and she actually stumbled. Her cut-rate lawyer had to steady her. Your Honor, David said during his opening, the defendant's own family recognizes the severity of her actions. Mr. Rossi has cooperated fully with the recovery of stolen property and has taken responsibility for his daughter's behavior. Isabella turned to stare at her father with this expression of complete betrayal. Mr. Rossi couldn't even look at her. He just sat there, staring at his hands, while his daughter realized that even her own family thought her behavior was indefensible. She ended up settling for the full amount within an hour. Her lawyer basically threw in the towel once he realized she had zero family support and the evidence was overwhelming. But watching Isabella realize that her own father had sided with me, that was better than any monetary settlement. That was the moment she understood she'd burned every bridge, lost every ally, and destroyed every relationship that mattered. Her dad left without speaking to her. I heard from Jesse later that she spent 20 minutes crying in the courthouse bathroom after the hearing. 6 months later, Isabella's life had completely imploded. No job, legal bills she couldn't afford, a restraining order that followed her everywhere, and a reputation in our social circle that was permanently damaged. Her friendship with Brittany and Chloe had collapsed when they realized they could face charges as accessories to harassment. Turns out fair-weather friends disappear quickly when consequences get real. She'd moved back in with her parents, who were reportedly furious about the legal bills and the embarrassment. Her relationship with her father was permanently damaged. Jesse heard through the grapevine that they barely spoke anymore. I got all my stuff back, including my mom's jewelry box. The watches were damaged. Isabella had apparently worn them and scratched them up, but that just added to the settlement amount. The best part? I ran into her at the grocery store a few months later. She saw me, turned white as a sheet, and immediately went down a different aisle. The restraining order was still in effect, so she legally couldn't even approach me. Jesse was with me and whispered, "Is that her? Damn, she looks rough. Karma's a hell of a thing." She really did look rough. Tired, stressed, probably working multiple retail jobs to pay off her legal bills. Part of me almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered her laughing while calling me a trained seal in Italian, and the sympathy evaporated. I'm dating someone new now, a veterinarian who actually asks about my family and listens when I talk. We went to dinner with her parents last month, still taking things slow. Isabella wanted to play games with my dignity. Well, she played herself.